My unfaithful wife called me a loser while she was on a vacation with another man, so I got my payback and soon after she was on her knees pleading. Hey Reddit, my name is Blake, and I'm 29 years old. My wife Claire is 28, and we've been together for 4 years now, married for 2 of those. I wouldn't say our relationship was perfect, but it wasn't terrible either. We had the usual relationship stuff that most couples deal with. Minor disagreements, occasional stress about money, the normal ups and downs that come with sharing your life with someone. Overall, I thought we were doing pretty well and working through things like any normal married couple would. Then everything changed when my wife decided to completely blow up our marriage out of nowhere. It started on what seemed like a completely ordinary evening. I had made us tacos for dinner, nothing fancy, just our usual Tuesday night routine. During the meal, Claire seemed quieter than usual, but that wasn't necessarily unusual for her. She gets moody sometimes, especially when she's stressed about work or other things going on in her life, so I didn't think much of it at the time. I figured maybe she'd had a rough day at the office or was just tired. After we finished eating, I was loading the dishwasher and cleaning up the kitchen when she told me she wanted to talk. She sat me down on our couch and got this incredibly serious expression on her face, the kind of look you might make when you're about to tell someone their dog died or deliver some other devastating news. I was mentally preparing myself for a conversation about our finances, or maybe the fact that our lease was coming up for renewal in a few months. Those were the kinds of serious talks we usually had. But no, that's not what this was about at all. Blake, I need a break from us, she said, just like that. No warning, no previous conversations about problems we might be having. Absolutely nothing to prepare me for what she was saying. It came completely out of left field. She continued with what honestly sounded like a rehearsed speech that she had practiced in front of a mirror. It's just not exciting anymore between us, she explained. I feel stuck in this routine, and I need to figure things out about myself and what I really want from life. Give me 3 weeks, and I'll have an answer for you about where we go from here. I sat there with my mouth probably hanging open, trying to process what she had just said to me. 3 weeks. She was talking about our marriage like it was some kind of business negotiation or contract renewal. She was looking at me with this expectant expression, like she was waiting for me to react in some specific way that she had already planned for. Here's the thing, though. I could tell this whole conversation was completely rehearsed. Everything about it felt fake as hell. The way she was sitting, the specific words she was choosing, even her tone of voice. It all seemed like she had run through this exact conversation in her head multiple times and was just reciting her lines to me. She wasn't being genuine or spontaneous. She was performing. She kept going with her speech about how this didn't mean she didn't love me and how she just needed space to find herself. All of this sounded like it came straight out of a self-help book or some relationship advice article she'd read online. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there thinking about how we had just renewed our car insurance together the week before, and she had been talking about where we wanted to go for vacation this summer. The whole time she's giving me this carefully planned speech, I could see that she was watching my face intently, waiting for me to break down or start begging or do something dramatic. I got the distinct impression that she wanted me to get emotional about it. Maybe cry a little. Tell her I couldn't live without her. Promise to change whatever needed changing. Basically, all that desperate boyfriend stuff you see in movies. She seemed to expect some kind of big reaction from me. Instead, I just said, okay, that's it, one word. Her whole expression changed immediately. She went from looking confident and in control to completely confused in a matter of seconds. It was like she had this entire script in her head about how this conversation was supposed to unfold, and I had just thrown her completely off course by not following along with her expectations. Okay, she repeated back to me, clearly not satisfied with my response. That's all you're going to say? What do you want me to say? I replied. You've clearly already made up your mind about this whole thing. If you need space, then take it. I could see her getting frustrated that I wasn't giving her the dramatic reaction she was obviously hoping for. She started talking about how this decision was hard for her too, and how she hoped I would understand what she was going through. But honestly, I was already mentally checking out of the conversation at that point. When someone tells you they need a break from your relationship, they're not really asking for your opinion or input. They're telling you what's going to happen, whether you like it or not. So why waste time and energy arguing about something that's already been decided? She told me she was going to stay at her friend Melissa's place while she figured things out. Melissa is this single friend of hers who's always posting inspirational quotes on Instagram about being independent and not needing a man. You know the type. Real supportive friend to have when you're in a relationship, if you know what I mean. How long have you been thinking about this? I asked her. A few weeks, she said, which was probably complete bullshit because Claire is a terrible liar. When she lies, she gets this little nervous twitch in her left eye and starts touching her hair a lot. She was doing both of those things as she answered my question. The rest of our conversation was just awkward small talk. She was trying to make it seem like this was some mutual decision we had come to together, like we had both agreed that our relationship needed a break. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there, wondering if she already had her bags packed and ready to go. After we finally went to bed that night, she was lying there scrolling through her phone for like 2 hours straight. Usually, Claire falls asleep within minutes of her head hitting the pillow, but tonight, she was texting someone every few minutes. I kept hearing that little notification sound go off, and she had the brightness turned way down, but I could still see the light from the screen illuminating her face in the dark. I didn't say anything about it because, honestly, what was the point? She had already told me she needed space from our relationship, so obviously she had something or someone else going on that I wasn't aware of. I'm not stupid. The signs were all there if you knew what to look for. The next morning, she was acting completely weird and guilty. She was making awkward small talk about the weather and asking if I wanted her to make waffles for breakfast, like she was trying to be extra nice to make up for dropping that emotional bomb on me the night before. I told her I was good with just coffee and that she should probably start packing if she was serious about staying at Melissa's place. That seemed to surprise her too, like she had expected me to try to talk her out of leaving or ask her to stay so we could work things out together. But if someone wants to leave, I'm not going to beg them to stay. That's just not who I am, and it's not how I was raised. I went to the kitchen to make some coffee and give her space to do whatever she needed to do. While I was waiting for it to brew, I could hear her moving around in the bedroom, opening and closing drawers, zipping up bags. She brought out 2 large suitcases and that big duffel bag she normally uses for the gym. For someone who was supposedly just staying at a friend's place for 3 weeks, she was packing an awful lot of stuff. She came into the kitchen around 8:30 in the morning, already completely dressed and ready to go. Her hair was done, her makeup was on, and she was wearing that purple dress she usually saves for important occasions or special events. It seemed like a really weird choice for someone who was supposedly just moving into Melissa's spare bedroom for a few weeks, but whatever. She was fidgeting nervously with her car keys and checking her phone every few seconds. There was this restless, anxious energy about her, like she had somewhere important to be and was running late. It wasn't the behavior of someone who was stressed about taking a break from their relationship. It was more like the excitement you'd see from someone who was about to go on a date or meet up with someone special. "You sure you got everything you need?" I asked her. "Yeah, I think so," she replied. "I mean, it's just temporary anyway, right?" That's when her phone buzzed with a text message. She looked at it and got this little smile on her face. It wasn't a happy smile exactly, but more like an excited, anticipatory kind of expression. It's hard to explain, but it was definitely not the face of someone who was stressed out about taking a break from their marriage to figure things out. She gave me this awkward, forced hug goodbye, telling me she'd call me in a few days to check in and see how I was doing. The whole interaction felt completely fake and rehearsed, like she was going through the motions because she thought that's what she was supposed to do as a caring wife, not because she actually meant any of it. After she loaded all her stuff into the car, she came back inside, saying she had forgotten her phone charger. I was back in the kitchen washing out my coffee mug, trying to process the fact that my wife had just moved out of our apartment. That's when I heard it. She was in the bedroom talking on the phone, and her voice was completely different. It was softer, kind of flirty. Definitely not the voice she uses when she talks to her girlfriends or her family members. This was her talking to a guy voice, and I knew it well. "I can't wait either," she was saying. It took forever to get him to agree to this, but I think he bought the whole "I need space" thing. I froze. I just stood there holding my coffee mug like an idiot, listening to my wife basically admit that everything she had told me was a complete lie. "Yeah, I'll see you soon," she continued. "Don't worry, he's not suspicious at all." Then she laughed this quiet, sneaky little laugh that made my stomach drop. "I have to go. He's right in the next room, but I'll text you when I get there." She hung up and came back to the kitchen like absolutely nothing had happened. "Found it," she said, waving her phone charger around cheerfully. "I swear I lose this thing every other day." I just nodded and said something about being careful driving. My brain was going a million miles an hour, but I kept my mouth shut. She hugged me again, told me she loved me, and left. I watched from the window as she drove away, and everything finally made sense. The whole "I need space" speech, the 3-week timeline, staying at Melissa's place. It was all complete bullshit. The guy she was talking to, whoever he was, they had this whole thing planned out together. She wasn't going to Melissa's house to figure herself out and think about our relationship. She was going off with some other man. I kept replaying that phone conversation over and over in my head. It took forever to get him to agree to this. Like I was some kind of obstacle she had to get around instead of her husband. He bought it completely. Like I was some kind of idiot who couldn't see what was happening right in front of me. The worst part was realizing that she had probably been planning this whole thing for weeks, maybe even months. All those late-night texts I'd been noticing, the secretive phone calls, the way she'd been acting distant and distracted lately, it all made perfect sense now. While I was thinking we were just going through a normal rough patch that most married couples experience, she was busy setting up her exit strategy. And that 3-week timeline she had given me? That wasn't for her to figure things out about herself and our relationship. That was exactly how long she needed to do whatever she was planning to do with this other guy before she came back and pretended like she'd had some kind of revelation about what she wanted from life. Now I had a choice to make. I could sit around feeling sorry for myself, wallowing in self-pity about how my wife had just played me like a fool, or I could get to work and start protecting myself. Guess which option I picked? The first thing I did was call my buddy Carter, who went through an absolutely nasty divorce about 2 years ago. That guy got completely screwed over by his ex-wife because he didn't know what he was doing from a legal standpoint. She managed to take half of his stuff, got alimony payments, and he's still paying for that mistake financially and emotionally. I wasn't about to make the same errors he did. "You need to call David Morrison," Carter told me immediately. "He's the lawyer who helped me clean up the mess I made. He's expensive as hell, but he's worth every single penny you'll pay him. This guy doesn't mess around, and he knows exactly how to handle situations like yours." So I looked up David's law office and called them around 10:30 that morning. David sounded like he'd heard my exact story 1,000 times before. He didn't seem shocked or surprised by anything I told him. He just took detailed notes and asked practical, straightforward questions. How long had we been married? What assets did we have together? Did we have any children? Thank God we don't have kids, because that would have made everything infinitely more complicated. "Here's what you need to understand," David told me in a very matter-of-fact tone. "If she's planning what you think she's planning, she's probably been setting this whole thing up for quite a while. People don't just wake up one morning and suddenly decide to cheat on their spouse. They usually have a well-thought-out exit strategy." That hit me like a truck, an exit strategy. Like our marriage was some kind of business deal or investment that she was trying to get out of before it went bad. David walked me through everything I needed to do to protect myself legally and financially. Document everything that happened. Make copies of all our financial records. Change passwords on important accounts. All the practical stuff that you don't think about when your world is falling apart. He also told me something that really stuck with me and changed how I was going to approach this whole situation. "The biggest mistake guys make in this situation is trying to be nice and fair," he explained. "They think if they play by the rules and act like gentlemen, their wives will do the same thing. But if she's already decided to screw you over, being nice and accommodating just makes it easier for her to take advantage of you." After I got off the phone with David, I felt like I had a real plan for the first time since this whole nightmare started. No more sitting around wondering what was happening or hoping things would somehow work out. It was time to take control of the situation. I started with the easy stuff first. I changed the password on our Netflix account, our Amazon Prime subscription, Disney Plus, all of that. If she wanted to watch TV and movies at her new place, wherever that actually was, she could pay for her own subscriptions. It was a small thing, but it felt good to finally do something concrete and take some kind of action. Then I went through our entire apartment and started methodically packing up the rest of her belongings into boxes. This wasn't coming from a place of anger or spite. I was just being practical about the situation. She had clearly made her decision about our relationship, so there was no point in keeping her stuff around like she was coming back. While I was going through her things, I found a shoebox full of old photographs, including some from before we had even met. There were pictures of her with different guys from college and high school, but there was one set that really caught my attention. There were about 10 photos of her with this one particular guy, and they looked pretty cozy together in all of them. What really got my attention was when I flipped one of the photos over. Someone had written, "Greece 2020 inches on the back in blue ink." Greece. That seemed completely random to me. Claire had never mentioned anything about going to Greece, and she definitely hadn't mentioned taking a trip there with some other guy. This was clearly from before we were married, but she had never brought up this trip in any of our conversations about travel or places we wanted to visit together. By the time I finished packing up all of her belongings, I called a local delivery service and arranged to have all the boxes sent directly to her parents' house. It cost me $95, but it seemed like the right thing to do under the circumstances. If she was really staying at Melissa's place like she claimed, then she could figure out how to get her stuff from her mom and dad's house. When I walked back into our apartment after the delivery truck left, it felt completely different. It was like half the personality had been sucked out of the place, but not necessarily in a bad way. It was more like I could finally see clearly what belonged to me and what had been ours as a couple. And honestly, there wasn't as much ours as I had thought there would be. Around 4:30 in the afternoon, her mom called me. She has always been pretty cool to me throughout our relationship, so I figured I owed her some kind of explanation about what was happening with her daughter. "Blake, honey, we just got a delivery of boxes with Claire's name on them," she said, sounding confused. "Is everything all right between you two?" "You'd have to ask Claire about that," I replied. She decided she needed some space from our relationship. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Space? What does that mean exactly?" "She said she needed 3 weeks to figure things out about herself and what she wants," I explained. "I'm just making sure she has everything she needs while she does that." Another pause, even longer this time. "Blake, where is Claire staying right now?" "She told me she was staying with Melissa." "Melissa who?" Now that was interesting. Her mom knows all of Claire's friends pretty well. If she didn't know which Melissa I was talking about, that was probably because there was no Melissa involved in this situation at all. "Honey, I'm really confused about all this," her mom continued. "Claire called us yesterday and said she was going on a work trip for a few weeks. She didn't say anything about having problems between you two or needing space from your marriage." A work trip. That was completely different from what she had told me. So let me get this straight. She told me she needed space to figure herself out. She told her parents she was going on a business trip, and she was supposedly staying at some friend's house that her own mother had never heard of. We said goodbye, and I hung up feeling even more confident that I was doing the right thing by protecting myself. The lies were just piling up at this point. The last thing I did that day was take her wedding ring from the bathroom counter where she had left it. She had taken it off before she left that morning, probably so she could pretend to be single wherever she was actually going. I drove to this pawn shop on the other side of town that Carter had recommended to me. The guy behind the counter looked like he'd seen everything twice and didn't care about anyone's sob story or personal drama. "How much for these?" I asked, putting both wedding rings on the counter. "I can give you $950 for the set," he said, after examining them briefly. It wasn't really about the money for me. It was about getting rid of the last physical reminder of promises that apparently didn't mean anything to her. Walking out of that pawn shop with $950 cash in my pocket, I felt lighter than I had in months. It was like I had finally stopped carrying around dead weight that I didn't even realize I was holding on to. Then this happened about a week after she left. I'm sitting on my couch Wednesday night, watching the basketball game and eating leftover Chinese food when I get a text from Brooke. Brooke is one of Claire's friends from college, and she's not the type to text me directly unless something serious is going on. Usually, if she needs to tell me something, she goes through Claire first. "Hey, Blake, can we talk? It's important," the text said. That got my attention real quick. Brooke sounded serious, and she's usually pretty laid back about everything, so whatever she wanted to discuss wasn't good news. "Sure, what's going on?" I texted back. "Not over text. Can you meet me tomorrow?" Now, I was really curious. Brooke had never asked to meet me in person without Claire being involved, and the fact that she didn't want to discuss whatever this was over text messages made it seem even more serious. The next day, I showed up at the coffee shop around 2 in the afternoon. Brooke was already there sitting in the back corner with a large coffee and looking like she hadn't slept much recently. She waved me over but didn't smile, which was weird because Brooke is always smiling about something. "Thanks for meeting me," she said as I sat down across from her. "I wasn't sure if I should tell you this, but I can't keep it to myself anymore." She pulled out her phone and started scrolling through something on the screen. "Claire made me promise not to say anything to you, but this whole situation is messed up, even for her." Brooke turned her phone toward me and showed me Instagram. It was Claire's account, but not the main one that I follow. This was some private account that I had never seen before. "She has 2 Instagram accounts," Brooke explained. "This one's private. Only like 15 people follow it. She posts different stuff here than on her regular account." The first photo made my stomach drop completely. It was Claire, and some guy sitting at what looked like an expensive restaurant right by the ocean somewhere. She was wearing that red dress I had found in her closet with the price tag still attached to it. "Who's that?" I asked, even though I was pretty sure I already knew the answer. "Dylan, her ex-boyfriend from college." There were more photos as Brooke scrolled through the account. Claire and Dylan walking on a beach holding hands. Another one of them on some kind of boat with her head resting on his shoulder. Both of them looking completely relaxed and happy. But the worst one was the last one she showed me. Claire was lying on Dylan's chest on a beach chair, and both of them were grinning like idiots. The caption said, "Finally free and living my truth." "Jesus Christ, where is this?" I asked Brooke. "Greece. She's been posting these photos all week long." Greece. Just like it said on the back of that old photo I had found in our apartment. "There's something else you need to know," Brooke continued. She told her job she was taking medical leave. She said she was too stressed to work and needed time off for her mental health. "Medical leave?" I repeated, trying to process what Brooke was telling me. "Yeah, she's getting paid while she's over there with him," Brooke explained. I heard her on the phone with HR, crying about how overwhelmed she was and how she needed professional help to deal with her stress levels. So let me get this straight. My wife told me she needed space to figure herself out. She told her parents she was going on a work trip. She told her job she was too sick to work and needed medical leave for her mental health. And the whole time, she's actually in Greece living it up with her ex-boyfriend from college. The level of planning and coordination that went into this whole scheme was absolutely insane. She didn't just wake up one day and decide to cheat on me. She had coordinated time off work under false pretenses, lied to multiple people including her own family, planned this elaborate vacation with another man, and probably spent months setting the entire thing up behind my back. "Can you send me these photos?" I asked Brooke. She hesitated for a moment. "What are you going to do with them?" "I don't know yet, but I should probably have proof of what's actually happening here." Brooke forwarded me all the photos, about 15 of them total, all posted over the past week. Each one was more obvious than the last. There was absolutely no way to pretend this was just innocent catching up with an old friend or some kind of platonic reunion. When I got home, I did some research on Dylan using the information I now had. It wasn't hard to find him on social media once I knew his name and could see his face clearly. What I discovered made the whole situation even worse. Turns out Dylan is married. He's been married for 3 years to a woman named Victoria, and she seems like a genuinely nice person based on her social media presence. There were lots of photos of them together, including some recent ones from what looked like their anniversary dinner just a few weeks ago. So Dylan is married, Claire is married, and they're both in Greece pretending to be single and available. His wife, Victoria, probably thinks he's on a business trip or some other legitimate reason for traveling, just like how Claire told her parents she was traveling for work. I took screenshots of everything I could find. If I was going to expose this whole elaborate deception, I wanted to make sure I had all the facts straight and could back up everything I was claiming. That night, I called my lawyer David and told him what I had discovered. "This is actually good news for you," he said, which wasn't what I was expecting to hear. Adultery still matters in divorce proceedings, especially when there's this much clear evidence of what's happening, David explained. And the fact that she lied to her employer about needing medical leave could be considered fraud. "What do you mean fraud?" "She's collecting sick pay under false pretenses while she's actually on vacation with another man. That's a fireable offense at most companies, and it's possibly illegal depending on how their medical leave policy is written." David told me to document everything I had found and not to contact Claire directly about any of this. "Let her keep digging her own grave while we build our case," he advised. That night, I printed out all the photos that Brooke had sent me, put them in a folder along with Dylan's personal information, and included screenshots of Claire's fake medical leave emails that Brooke had managed to send me. This was real, undeniable evidence of what my wife was actually doing while she was supposed to be finding herself and figuring out what she wanted from life. I felt like I was holding a loaded gun, and I was just waiting for the right moment to use it. I woke up Thursday morning with a clear plan of action. The first thing I did was draft an email to Claire's HR department. I kept it simple and professional, with no emotion or personal drama. Just the facts. "To whom it may concern," I wrote. "I believe you should be aware that one of your employees, Claire Patterson, is currently collecting medical leave benefits while vacationing in Greece. Please see attached photographic evidence. I trust you will handle this matter appropriately." That was it. Short, sweet, and straight to the point. I sent it at 8:47 in the morning on Thursday, but I wasn't finished yet. I also sent a copy of the same evidence to Dylan's wife, Victoria. I had found her email address through her real estate business website, and she had a right to know what her husband was up to while he was supposedly away on business. The email to Victoria was a little different, more personal and direct. "Hi, Victoria," I wrote. "I don't know you personally, but I think you should see these photos of your husband Dylan with my wife Claire in Greece. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, but I thought you deserved to know. Blake." I attached the same photos that showed Dylan and Claire together, hit send, and then went to make myself some breakfast. If I was going to go nuclear on this whole situation, I might as well do it right and make sure everyone who needed to know the truth actually knew what was happening. Around 11 o'clock in the morning, my phone started buzzing with calls from numbers I didn't recognize. I let them all go to voicemail, figuring that if it was something important, they would leave a message explaining what they wanted. The first voicemail was from some woman at Claire's company, asking me to call them back regarding an urgent matter concerning Mrs. Patterson. The second voicemail was from Victoria, Dylan's wife, asking if we could talk because she needed to understand what was happening. I called Victoria back first. She sounded like she had been crying for hours. "Is this really happening?" she asked me immediately. "Are they really together right now?" "Yeah, they are. I'm sorry you had to find out this way." "How long has this been going on?" "I don't know exactly, but probably months. Maybe even longer based on what I've been able to piece together." Victoria told me that Dylan had said he was going to Greece for some kind of business conference. He told her that his company was paying for everything and that he'd be back in 2 weeks. She had even helped him pack his suitcase before he left. "I feel so stupid," she said. "You're not stupid. They're just really good liars who put a lot of effort into deceiving both of us." We talked for about 20 minutes. She thanked me for telling her the truth about what was happening and said she was going to contact a lawyer as soon as we hung up. After I finished talking with Victoria, I called Claire's HR department back. I got transferred to some director who sounded like she was not having a good day at all. "Mr. Patterson, thank you for calling us back," she said. "We need to verify some information about the photos you sent us. Are you certain these photos were taken recently and that Mrs. Patterson is currently on approved medical leave?" "Yes to both questions," I replied. "The photos were posted this week on her social media, and she started her medical leave on Monday." The HR director asked me a bunch of detailed questions about Claire's condition when she left. Did I think she was actually sick? What kind of symptoms was she displaying? What was her mental state like? I told her the complete truth. Claire had seemed fine physically, no signs of illness or medical problems. She had said she was stressed about our relationship, but that was about it. "Mr. Patterson, I have to ask, are you and Mrs. Patterson currently having marital problems?" "We are now," I answered honestly. She said they would be conducting a full investigation into the matter and thanked me for bringing the situation to their attention. About 2 hours later, Brooke sent me a text message. "Dude, did you get Claire fired? She just called me crying, saying HR contacted her while she's in Greece." I didn't respond to Brooke right away. I figured it was better to let Claire sweat it out for a while and really understand the consequences of her actions. That afternoon, I got a call from my lawyer, David. "I just got off the phone with Claire's attorney," he told me. "Apparently, she's trying to fly back early because of some work emergency. Her lawyer wanted to know if you'd be willing to hold off on filing divorce papers until she gets back and you two can talk." "What did you tell him?" "I told him we'd consider it if she wants to make this easy on everyone involved," David replied. "But between you and me, she's in full panic mode right now." David explained that getting fired for lying about medical leave was going to make the divorce proceedings much easier for me. It proved that she was being deceptive and manipulative, which family courts really don't like to see. Plus, if she ended up unemployed, she couldn't really ask for alimony payments. "It's hard to argue that you need financial support when you got yourself fired for committing fraud," David said. That evening, Claire's mom called me again. She sounded confused and upset about everything that was happening. "Blake, honey, what's going on?" she asked. "Claire called us crying about her job and saying you sent photos to her boss." "She's in Greece with another man," I said simply. "Has been there all week. She lied to you, she lied to her job, and she lied to me." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Another man?" her mom finally said. "Her ex-boyfriend from college. They've been planning this whole thing for months." She started crying. "I don't understand any of this. She said you two were having problems, but she never said anything about another man." 30 minutes later, her dad sent me a text message. "Tell me this isn't true." Another text came right after that one. "Greece with her ex after everything you did for her?" Another text came right after that one. "You didn't deserve this, Blake. None of us did." I felt bad for her parents. They're genuinely good people who raised what they thought was a decent daughter. Finding out that your kid is a lying cheater who's willing to deceive everyone around her has got to be incredibly difficult to process. Friday morning, Brooke called me instead of texting. She told me that Dylan had completely bailed on Claire as soon as his wife Victoria confronted him about the photos. Victoria had called him screaming about what she'd discovered, and Dylan immediately threw Claire under the bus to try to save his own marriage. He told Victoria that Claire had seduced him and that he had made a terrible mistake. He claimed that she was the one who initiated everything and that he was just a victim of her manipulation. So now, Claire was stuck in Greece by herself, fired from her job, and the guy she had destroyed her marriage for wouldn't even take her phone calls anymore. I almost feel bad for her, Brooke said. Almost. The best part, though, according to Brooke, was that Dylan's wife, Victoria, had posted a bunch of those same photos on Facebook, tagging both Dylan and Claire in them. She had added a caption about cheating husbands and home-wrecking desperados. Victoria doesn't mess around, apparently. So now everyone in Claire's professional and social circles knew exactly what she had done. Her college friends, her co-workers, her family members. They had all seen the photos and knew the truth about her elaborate deception. There was no way for her to spin this story or try to make herself look like the victim in the situation. By Sunday, 3 of Claire's friends had reached out to me, apologizing for what she had done and expressing their support. Even her cousin Jessica, who usually thinks Claire can do no wrong and always takes her side in any conflict, sent me a message saying she was sorry about everything and that I deserved much better treatment. The whole situation had gone from being a private family matter to complete public humiliation in less than 48 hours. And the beautiful part of it all was that I didn't have to say a single word against her or try to turn people against her. I just showed them exactly what she was actually doing while she was supposed to be figuring herself out, and I let them draw their own conclusions about her character. You play with fire, you get burned. Claire thought she was so clever with her little secret vacation and elaborate cover story, but she forgot that the internet is forever and that lies have a way of catching up with you eventually. Every photo she posted, every lie she told, every person she deceived, it all came back to bite her in the end. Well, Claire's 3 weeks were finally up, and let me tell you, her homecoming was absolutely nothing like she had expected it to be. I knew she was flying back that day because her mom had called me, asking if I could pick Claire up from the airport. Apparently, Dylan had left her completely stranded in Greece after his wife found out about their affair, and Claire had to change her flight to come back early. I told her mom that Claire was a grown woman who could figure out her own transportation arrangements. The whole week leading up to her return, I had been getting ready for this moment. Not emotionally, I was already past that stage and had moved on mentally. I mean literally getting ready, making sure everything was exactly how I wanted it when she walked through that door. The first thing I did was change the locks on our apartment. It cost me $200, but it was worth every penny just for the peace of mind. The old keys she had in her possession were now completely useless pieces of metal that wouldn't get her into the building or the apartment. I also did something that probably sounds petty to some people, but it felt absolutely amazing to me. Remember that car she had been driving? The lease was actually in my name because her credit score wasn't great when we originally got it. I called the dealership on Tuesday and told them to come pick it up. The repo guy was scheduled to grab it Thursday afternoon, right around the time she would be getting back from her trip. Wednesday night, I'm sitting on the couch watching the basketball game and eating pizza when my phone starts absolutely blowing up with calls from Claire. I had temporarily unblocked her number just to see what kind of panic mode she was operating in. The first call went straight to voicemail. "Blake, please call me back," she said. "Something's wrong with my key and I can't get into the apartment. I don't know what's happening." The second call came about 5 minutes later. "Blake, this isn't funny. I'm standing outside our apartment and none of my keys work. Did you change the locks?" The third call was even more frantic. "I can see through the window and all my stuff is gone. Call me back right now." I let them all go to voicemail without answering. She called probably 15 times over the next 2 hours, and each message got progressively more frantic and angry. The last voicemail was her crying and asking why I was doing this to her, begging me to let her in so we could talk and work things out. Thursday afternoon, right on schedule, I watched from my window as the repo guy showed up with a tow truck. Claire's car was parked right out front, where she had left it before her trip. The guy hooked it up to his truck and drove off in about 10 minutes. Simple as that. About an hour later, Claire showed up with her suitcases, looking like she had been crying for days straight. She was wearing the same clothes from those Grease photos, except now they looked wrinkled and dirty. Her hair was a complete mess, and she had that hollow, defeated look that people get when their whole world falls apart around them. She tried her key again, even though she obviously knew it wouldn't work after the previous night's phone calls. Then she pressed her face against the front window, trying to see inside the apartment. I was sitting at the kitchen table in plain sight, reading a book and drinking coffee. She started banging on the window. "Blake, I can see you in there! Open the door! We need to talk!" I looked up at her, made direct eye contact, and went back to reading my book. She banged harder on the glass. "This is my apartment, too. You can't just lock me out like this." That's when I got up from the table, walked over to the window, and held up the divorce papers that David had prepared for me. I made sure she could see them clearly through the glass. Her face went completely white, like all the blood had just drained out of it in a matter of seconds. I opened the window just enough to slide a manila envelope through the gap. Inside were the divorce papers and a note I had written for her. "You said you needed 3 weeks to figure things out," the note read. "I figured it out in 3 hours. All communication goes through the lawyers now." She grabbed the envelope with shaking hands and ripped it open right there on the front steps. As she read through the legal papers, I could see her getting more and more panicked with each page. "Blake, please let me explain," she called out desperately. "It's not what you think. You're being way too dramatic about this." I said, "You're free now, Claire. Go chase your fantasy," I replied through the window. Then I closed the window and went back to reading my book. She stood out there for probably another hour, alternating between crying hysterically and yelling at the window. Eventually, Claire called someone to come pick her up. It turned out to be her dad, who showed up looking both embarrassed and angry about the whole situation. Before they drove off together, he looked up at my window and shook his head, like he was disappointed in both of us for letting things get to this point. That evening, my phone started ringing again, but this time it was Claire's lawyer calling. He wanted to schedule a meeting so we could discuss the situation like adults and try to work something out. I gave him David's contact information and told him that all communication needed to go through our attorneys from now on. No more direct contact between Claire and me, no more playing games or trying to manipulate the situation. The last thing I heard was that Claire was back at her parents' house, sleeping in her old childhood bedroom like she was 16 again. Her mom wasn't saying much to her according to what I heard through mutual friends, just moving around the house in complete silence, clearly disappointed in her daughter's choices. Her dad, on the other hand, was making her pay monthly rent. Cold, hard cash every month. No free rides for a 28-year-old woman who had just blown up her entire life. Word got around pretty quickly that she was telling people the whole thing was just a big misunderstanding and mistake. But nobody was buying her story anymore. Not after all the lies she had stacked up like Jenga blocks, just waiting to fall down. She didn't just betray me in this situation. She had played games with her job, her friends, and even her own family members. She had lied to everyone who cared about her, and now no one wanted to hear whatever redemption speech she was trying to give. Claire was also in full panic mode about money. Human Resources had made her pay back all the medical leave money she had fraudulently claimed while she was in Greece. She had no job, no savings account to fall back on, and no place to land softly. The car she used to drive was already gone, repossessed and returned to the dealership. She tried applying for unemployment benefits, but rumor has it they were going to deny her claim. Getting terminated for fraud isn't exactly a winning argument when you're trying to collect unemployment compensation. Meanwhile, I'm living my absolute best life. The divorce should be finalized in just a few months, and David says it's going to be pretty straightforward from a legal standpoint. Since we don't have any children together, and she basically has no grounds to ask for anything substantial, the whole process should go smoothly. It's pretty hard to claim that you deserve half of someone's belongings and assets when you got yourself fired for lying so you could cheat on them with your ex-boyfriend in another country. Last week, I ran into Claire at the grocery store. She looked absolutely terrible, like she had aged 5 years in just 2 months. She saw me before I saw her, and I caught it out of the corner of my eye. That little hesitation, like she was weighing whether to play it cool and ignore me or come running over with some recycled apology and explanation. She took a few steps in my direction and opened her mouth like she had something important to say to me. But I didn't stop walking, didn't even acknowledge her presence. I didn't blink, didn't slow down, just kept moving through the store like she wasn't even there. We have absolutely nothing to say to each other at this point. That ship has sailed, burned, and sunk to the bottom of the ocean. That was the last time I ever saw her, and I'm perfectly fine with that being our final interaction. She wanted to be free to live her truth or whatever bullshit phrase she used in those Instagram captions. Well, congratulations, Claire. You got exactly what you asked for. You're free now. Free to figure out how to rebuild your entire life from scratch. Free to explain to future employers why you got fired from your last job. Free to live in your childhood bedroom and pay rent to your disappointed parents. I hope it was worth it. I hope those few weeks in Greece with Dylan were everything you dreamed they would be, because they cost you absolutely everything else you had built in your adult life. As for me, I'm doing great. I've got a clean apartment that's actually mine, money in the bank, a clear conscience, and the satisfaction of knowing that I handled this situation with dignity and intelligence instead of letting my emotions make me do something stupid. Sometimes, the best revenge is just letting people destroy themselves while you document the process. She thought she was playing chess, but she was actually playing herself.